Greetings and welcome to another Pokemon 2019 or Pokemon Journeys anime episode review. This time I'm talking about episode 96, so let's get to it. Episode 96 begins in Mossdeep City. Ash and Goh arrive at the Space Center during the evening. They are soon greeted by Sophocles, who was clearly waiting for them. Togedemaru also says hello alongside Sophocles, and I love that she then goes for a more affectionate greeting with Pikachu. Ash wonders if Sophocles and Togedemaru have been well, and he soon notices that Sophocles has an Ampharos with him. Goh uses his Pokédex to get more information on Ampharos. The Pokédex mentions that Ampharos is known for the light it emits from the tip of its tail, which serves as a beacon for lost people. Because of this, Ampharos is often used in lighthouses to guide ships to safety. Goh realizes that because of this, Ampharos is here at the Space Center to help with the project that they are working on. Sophocles confirms that Goh's assumption is right, and Sophocles then gives Ampharos a little push while telling Ampharos to say hello. But Ampharos ends up tripping and it headbutts Ash in the face instead, which is pretty funny. Sophocles apologizes, saying that Ampharos is very clumsy. Ash recovers from the headbutt, he says that he will be fine, and he says nice to meet you to Ampharos. But Ampharos is clearly sad because it hurt Ash. Ampharos does feel better when it's greeted by Pikachu though. Grookey also greets Ampharos, and Goh takes this chance to introduce Grookey since Grookey was not around the last time that Ash and Goh met with Sophocles and Togedemaru. Sophocles says that it is nice to meet Grookey. Ash then wonders if everyone in Alola is doing fine. Sophocles says that yes, they are, and that they are dying to see Ash and Goh again. He also mentions that Kiawe even wants to have a rematch with Goh. This shows that Kiawe still sees Goh as a rival. Sophocles then wonders where's Raboot. So Goh proudly sends out Cinderace to show that Raboot evolved. Which surprises Sophocles, who says that Cinderace is just so cool. And it's funny that Cinderace is like, yeah, praise me more. Sophocles then exclaims, are you guys ready to head into the Mossdeep City Space Center? Clearly Ash and Goh say yes to this question since the episode cuts to the inside of the Space Center, where Sophocles is giving Ash and Goh a tour of the facility. I love that Ash and Pikachu press their faces against a window so that they can get a closer look at what's on the other side of said window, and Ash exclaims that it is all so cool. Meanwhile, Goh says to Sophocles, thank you so much for inviting us. This is the best. Sophocles responds by saying, well, yeah, which is his catchphrase. Now, it's interesting that in Japanese, this catchphrase is a pun on Sophocles' Japanese name, which is Ma-mane. Well, yeah, in Japanese is mane, but Sophocles stutters on the ma, so he says it twice, which means that he says Ma-mane, which is his name. I somehow did not notice that this was the case before this episode. So this is a fun little discovery that I made in this episode, which I now share here with you, dear viewer, as a fun fact. So Ash runs off because he sees something that catches his eye. Sophocles says, hey Ash, you will get lost if we don't stick together. Goh then says that he can't believe that Sophocles is part of the team that is bringing back the Talonflame too. Sophocles says that he can't believe it either. He still feels like he is dreaming. Sophocles then takes Ash and Goh to the command center, where they see all the fancy technology and all the skilled people that are here, ready to bring the Talonflame 2 back. Now, I love that before they enter the command center, Cinderace is looking around like, whoa, this is all so cool. So, one of the researchers then turns around when he notices that Sophocles is here with his guests. The researcher introduces himself as Hirota, and he welcomes Ash and Goh, who introduce themselves as well. And Goh says thank you for having us here, and for allowing us to watch the project. Goh then expresses how excited he is because they get to witness one of the biggest projects of the century close up. Now it's funny that Ash says that it's amazing that there are Talonflame in space, of all places. He does not realize that Talonflame is just the name given to the asteroid explorer that the project centers on. Goh does correct Ash's misconception, and this shocks Ash. Now it's worth noting that Talonflame 2 is a reference to Hayabusa 2, which is a Japanese space probe. Hayabusa means peregrine falcon, which is the animal that Talonflame is based on, so this is a clever reference. Sophocles then reveals that Talonflame 2 was launched from the Mossdeep City Space Center, with the mission to probe an asteroid. Ash and Goh are then shown footage of the launch of the rocket that took Talonflame 2 to space. Goh exclaims that this is so cool. The footage ends by showing that after the rocket got to space, Talonflame 2 detached from it. Talonflame 2 then kept going on its own until it reached the target asteroid. Talonflame 2 then completed its mission by probing the asteroid. Hirota then explains that Talonflame 2 is on its way home now. Sophocles adds that this is where Ampharos comes in. The light that Ampharos emits has a special wavelength. They will amplify it and beam it out. Hirota then explains that Talonflame 2 has a light receptor on it, so it will be guided by the light, which will allow it to get home, and it will prevent it from getting lost in space. Goh then says, in other words, the light from Ampharos' tail is working like a lighthouse beacon, right? Ash exclaims that this means that Ampharos is not just a sea lighthouse, but it is a space lighthouse too. Hirota then says that since they wanted to increase the interest in the study of outer space, they decided to have children help with the mission to bring back Talonflame 2. Each child has their own Ampharos. Ash exclaims that there are a lot of kids helping with the project, and Goh laments the fact that he does not have an Ampharos because he could have helped as well. Hirota then says that it is time to begin the mission, and he tells Sophocles and Ampharos to get ready. Sophocles says yes, and he runs off while telling Ampharos to go with him. However, clumsy Ampharos ends up hilariously smacking Ash and Goh in the face with its tail when it decides to walk past them. Like before when it headbutted Ash, Ampharos is sad because it made a mistake, while Sophocles wonders if Ash and Goh are alright. Ampharos then makes yet another mistake. It almost steps on Togedemaru, who manages to jump out of the way. But Togedemaru does strike a nearby machine on accident, and electricity is seen being emitted here. So I knew at this point that the machine was likely damaged, which would probably lead to some trouble later. Sophocles catches Togedemaru, who bounced off the machine and hit earlier. Sophocles then tells Ampharos to get ready. Ampharos proceeds to do just this, and the machine that Togedemaru hit before emits electricity again, confirming that yes, it was damaged. Seeing how clumsy Ampharos is, Goh wonders if this will really work, while Ash cheers for Ampharos. So Ampharos is hooked up to the machine that will amplify its light. The Mossdeep City Space Center then gets ready to take over for Kleiber Observatory, who are currently guiding Talonflame 2 with the help of the child and Ampharos stationed there. Sophocles says, Ampharos, here we go. Lights on. Ampharos turns on its lights, which are amplified by the machine it's in. After confirming that the illumination angle and power output are sufficient, Hirota exclaims that the Mossdeep City Space Center will now take over for Kleiber Observatory, and so Ampharos' light is fired off into space as a beam, and the beam successfully connects with Talonflame 2. Ash says that he has no idea what he is seeing, but that it is amazing, while Goh still can't believe that he is watching something this amazing from so close. Ampharos continues to emit its light with encouragement from Sophocles, while Pikachu, Grookey, Togedemaru, and Cinderace watch in awe. Cinderace especially is in a state of complete wonder, which is adorable. Unfortunately, Cinderace's amazement is interrupted by the malfunctioning of the machine that Togedemaru hit earlier. The machine emits electricity once again, and it then explodes, which leads to a state of total panic. The Pokemon are shocked and confused, and the researchers rush to the scene in order to see what happened, and in order to contain the problem. Hirota ends up pressing a red button, which forces an emergency shutdown, and he tells the rest of the team that they should contact Aenia's observatory so that they can take over as soon as possible. Aenia's observatory is quick to respond, and they manage to get a beam of light into space fast, which connects to Talonflame 2, preventing it from wandering off course. Hirota is relieved because of this. Meanwhile, Sophocles and Ampharos are sad, and they wonder if they did something wrong. Hirota apologizes to them, and he says that they will have the machine fixed in time for the next illumination, so Ampharos should rest in the meantime. Sophocles agrees to take a break alongside Ampharos and they both leave the Space Center while still looking dejected. Outside the Space Center, Sophocles and Ampharos sit down with their backs to each other. They are clearly still depressed. Pikachu and Grookey adorably show up together to cheer up Sophocles and Ampharos. Ash, Goh, and Cinderace soon appear as well. Goh says that Ampharos was amazing, that there were some malfunctions, yes, but that Ampharos' light was still able to reach Talonflame too. Ash adds that yes, the light was very bright, and that it was shining like whoosh. Goh adds that once the machine is fixed, Ampharos can just try again. Sophocles thanks Ash and Goh for their encouragement. I love that Grookey then jumps on Ampharos' tail in an attempt to cheer up Ampharos. Grookey is always so adorable and endearing, at least when it's not messing anything up by being a prankster. Ampharos then raises its tail with Grookey on it, and Sophocles says to Ampharos, "Light on!" Ampharos does turn on its light a little bit, enough to make Grookey happy, but Ampharos is not able to make the light shine much or for very long. Ampharos tries its best to turn on its light again, but it can't. Now Ampharos lowers its tail due to the fact that it is depressed, and I love that Grookey gets down from the tail while sounding sad. Even Grookey realizes that this is not the time for games. So I think that this is a touching scene. Ash wonders why this is happening because Ampharos' light was shining so bright earlier. Goh says that perhaps Ampharos fell into a slump due to the shock of failing. Now this sounds like a pun, but I doubt that Goh would be making such a joke in a situation like this. Sophocles reassures Ampharos saying that it can turn on its light again if it just relaxes. But Ampharos does the opposite of relaxing. It runs off into the nearby forest in frustration instead. Ash, Goh, Sophocles, and their Pokemon search for Ampharos in the forest, but the search bears no fruit. Sophocles then says that he knew that he was not the right person for this, because he is not Ampharos' trainer, revealing that he did not actually catch Ampharos. This is something that I was wondering throughout the episode up to this point, because of course, Sophocles did not own an Ampharos the last time we saw him. So I assumed that he caught Ampharos off screen in the time since then. But Sophocles reveals that he actually borrowed Ampharos from his cousin Molayne, in order to be able to participate in the Talonflame 2 project, because he wanted to participate in the project so badly. Goh wonders who Molayne is, so Ash explains that Molayne works at the Hokulani Observatory, and that he is Sophocles' cousin. We do get a flashback from the Sun and Moon series, showing Molayne in front of the observatory alongside Sophocles and the Kukui. Sophocles goes on to say that he was only invited here to the Mossdeep City Space Center because of Ampharos, so he wanted to make sure that the project was a success, but he can't even cheer up Ampharos, and so he is just being a nuisance to everyone else. He then says that he should not have accepted the invitation in the first place. Now while Sophocles is talking, Grookey sees a light in the distance, and Grookey goes after said light, separating from the group in the process. Ash then tells Sophocles that he should not think like that he is always trying his hardest while going at full power, that he is here now because he is working towards his dream of being an astronaut, so he should just keep doing his best till the end. Goh agrees with Ash, and he says that it's not over yet, which is why they must find Ampharos. Sophocles agrees with Ash and Goh and he smiles, showing that Ash and Goh did manage to cheer him up. Goh then notices that Grookey is gone, so everyone realizes that Grookey disappeared. The episode then cuts to Grookey, who is still chasing after the light it saw earlier. We do hear Goh talking during this segment. He tells the others that knowing Grookey, it probably ran off after a light that it believes could be Ampharos. Which is indeed the case, so Goh definitely knows his partner Pokemon well. Grookey soon catches up to the light and it jumps towards it, only to find that the source of the light is a Volbeat, who screams in shock and it flies away, leaving a dumbfounded Grookey behind. The way that they both scream here is just so hilarious, and it's also funny that Grookey is left like, what in the world just happened? Grookey then realizes that it's lost. It soon starts to rain while everyone else searches for Ampharos and for Grookey. Cinderace soon finds Ampharos behind a nearby rock. Everyone is relieved to find Ampharos, and Ash says that they just need to find Grookey now. But Goh points out that the weather is not looking good. Sophocles then has an idea. They can use light to guide Grookey to them. Sophocles has Togedemaru emit light, but this light is not strong enough to be visible from afar. Ash then has Pikachu use Thunderbolt, but this is still not a strong enough source of light. Though to be fair, the Thunderbolt is quite visible from afar, but only if the trees are not in the way. Everyone realizes that they need a stronger light that shines for longer. They all think for a while, and they all soon realize that the answer is right in front of them, Ampharos. Goh tells Ampharos to help since they need its light to find Grookey. Now Ampharos is apparently confused by this request, which is odd since it's a pretty straightforward request. But maybe Ampharos is wondering why Goh wants its help, when it can no longer turn on its light. Sophocles then approaches Ampharos and he says, I mess things up as well, and I get depressed a lot too. But I believe that if I don't give up, then my dreams will eventually come true. Maybe I am not the most reliable person, but I will do my best. So would you be up for giving this another try with me? Ampharos is hesitant at first, but it soon tries to turn on its light again, and manages to emit only a little bit of light at first. But Sophocles and Togedemaru encourage Ampharos, and so Ampharos is able to make its light shine even more. This gives everyone hope, so Ash and Goh encourage Ampharos as well. All this encouragement gives Ampharos the determination to give it everything it has. And it finally stands up. With one final push, Ampharos is able to turn on its lights at maximum power. Said lights illuminate a good portion of the forest, and Grookey is able to see this light from where it is. Grookey follows the light, which allows it to reunite with Goh. Now I love that this reunion is framed as a heartfelt and touching reunion, with emotional music, visual effects, and everything, until Grookey just crashes into Goh, ending the endearing scene and turning it into a comedic scene instead. Which is fitting not just for Grookey's character, but also because there really was no need for this to be an emotional reunion. So Grookey happily embraces Goh, who says that he was very worried. Ash then tells Ampharos that it really is like a lighthouse. Goh then says thank you to Ampharos, and he says that Ampharos' light is a beacon for everyone. Ampharos once again looks confused for some reason. I guess that Ampharos is just an airhead on top of being clumsy. And speaking of being clumsy, Sophocles tells Ampharos that they should go back to the Space Center, and Ampharos slips on the muddy ground on its way back, which is funny, especially with the way everyone reacts to this unfortunate accident. The episode then cuts to the inside of the Space Center. Sophocles wonders if Hirota would consider letting him and Ampharos try again. Hirota says that of course they can try again and that the equipment is fixed up and ready to go. Sophocles and Ampharos get ready to try again while Ash and Goh encourage them. The episode then cuts to space. Talonflame 2 is being guided by a beam of light, but a meteorite flies towards it, and Talonflame 2 is forced to use an evasive maneuver to avoid the meteorite. The episode then cuts back to the Space Center where Sophocles and Hirota are informed that there is an emergency. Talonflame 2 deviated from its trajectory because of an evasive maneuver that it had to do. Since the maneuver was so sudden, there was no time for altitude adjustment. Ash wonders what all of this means, and Hirota explains that Talonflame 2 left its intended course. If it continues like this, it won't be able to make it back home. This shocks Ash and Goh. Sophocles then takes out his computer and he makes some quick calculations to see if an idea he has in mind can work to solve the problem. After realizing that his plan will work, he shares his plan with Hirota. Sophocles' plan is that Kleiner Observatory can still reach Talonflame 2, so they can still get it back on track, and they can bring it closer. They can then have Aeneas Observatory and Karna Observatory take over in succession to get Talonflame 2 closer and closer to Earth. Once Talonflame 2 is directly above the Mossdeep City Space Center, the reentry signal can be sent to it, which will allow it to return to Earth. Hirota confirms that the calculations Sophocles made are correct, and he decides that they will go with this plan. He says to the other researchers, let's get to work. We will make this plan a success. So, all the researchers get to work on Sophocles' plan. They contact all the observatories and they get all of them to follow the plan. All the observatories fire their beams at Talonflame 2 and they manage to bring it closer and closer. Once it's almost above the Mossdeep City Space Center, Hirota says, Sophocles and Ampharos, we are counting on you. Sophocles gets hyped up alongside Ampharos and he says to Ampharos, send the light of hope into space, light on. Ampharos manages to turn its lights on, which are amplified by the machine. The resultant beam is sent into space. However, Talonflame 2 does not receive the signal. Hirota says that perhaps the clouds are too thick. It is still raining, so this does make sense. Sophocles tells Ampharos that they need more light. So Ampharos generates even more light. Ash then has Pikachu use Thunderbolt in order to feed more electricity to Ampharos. Sophocles follows suit by having Togedemaru use Sing Sap on Ampharos. Goh also decides to help by sending out Raichu, who uses Nozzle on Ampharos. With 3 electric Pokemon feeding it electricity and, with the cheers of Ash, Goh, and Sophocles, Ampharos is able to send out a massive beam of light that pierces the clouds, and it reaches Talonflame 2. The researchers confirm that contact with Talonflame 2 was established, and that it is entering the atmosphere. Ash, Goh, and Sophocles are happy when they hear this. The episode then cuts to show that a lot of people are watching Talonflame 2 as it makes its way through the atmosphere, burning in the process. There's people watching from the outskirts of the city, there's people watching from home on their TVs, there's people watching from near one of the observatories with telescopes and with binoculars. Some of the kids and Ampharos that helped with the project also watched the descent of Talonflame 2, while others are instead congratulated for a job well done. Hirota and his team also watched Talonflame 2 on their monitors. They are clearly happy and proud because the mission was a success. Eventually, Talonflame 2 burns up completely, creating a cool flaming bird that obviously represents Talonflame itself. In the end, only the capsule contained within Talonflame 2 remains, and it safely lands with a parachute in a desert somewhere. Shortly after this, Hirota is seen wiping away tears, showing just how happy he is because everything worked out in the end. Ash and Goh congratulate Sophocles, with Ash saying that Sophocles did it, and Goh says that this is one for the history books. Sophocles responds with his catchphrase, well, yeah. Ash then congratulates Ampharos as well, but Ampharos is too exhausted to accept any praise. Pikachu, Togedemaru, and Raichu are also completely burnt out. Or should I say, completely shocked out. Meanwhile, Cinderace is holding Grookey just like a parent or babysitter would hold a baby, which is adorable. The episode then cuts to the outside of the Space Center, where Pikachu and Togedemaru say goodbye to each other by nuzzling their cheeks together, which is adorable. Goh says that he will be rooting for Sophocles so that he can become an astronaut. And Sophocles tells Ash and Goh that they should keep working towards their dreams as well. Ash and Goh say that they will indeed fulfill their dreams, and they leave. They all say goodbye to each other while the narrator says that Ash and Goh reaffirmed their commitment to their dreams by watching Sophocles work so hard towards his own dream, and that's the episode. Overall, this was a nice episode. It wasn't great or anything. It was not really an episode to get too excited about, but it was not a bad episode either. It was nice to see Sophocles again, though to be fair, out of all of Ash's friends from the Hoenn region, he is my least favorite. It's not that I hate him or anything, but if they were going to make an episode focused on just one of Ash's friends from the Sun and Moon series, then I would have preferred to see a Lilie or Kiawe episode. Though in Lilie's case, it would not be an episode focused on just one character. Still, it is always nice to see a returning character, especially when we see them pursue their dreams. So it was still nice to see Sophocles working towards becoming an astronaut. And I love the lesson taught by this episode, that we should continue to do our best when working towards something, even when we fail, and that it is okay to be depressed when we do fail, so long as we eventually get over our stumble so that we can go back to giving it our all. Ampharos was also very adorable and endearing throughout the episode. It really made me want to root for it, and I was happy that it was able to succeed in the end. Also, I do love space and astronomy, so for me this episode was both visually appealing and thematically interesting, and this gave the episode some extra value for me. So yeah, this was a nice episode overall. But that's the video, as always. Leave your own thoughts down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did and would like to see more like it, then please consider subscribing to my channel. I love Pokemon and I love making videos on both the anime and the games. Also, please consider clicking the links on screen so that you can check out more videos like this right away. Thank you very much for watching, and let's meet again in the next video.